The Ontario Liberal Caucus met and they decided by consensus that it was time for Justin Trudeau to step down. Chrystia Freeland was in on the call, but apparently, by all accounts, didn't say anything. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. There's a lot of turmoil happening with the Liberal Party, as many of us are going to be aware, with the resignation of Chrystia Freeland and the resignation of Sean Fraser, leaving Justin Trudeau with having to do sort of a stopgap on the finance minister the day that he, quietly released the financial statement. Then he announced 12 new members to the cabinet, which was a difficult choice for him because many of those Liberals are refusing the job. They're turning it down, and he's having to settle for people who he knows at least will be loyal to him, who won't question him in any way, shape, or form, who will carry the party message out to the masses. Of course, many of them probably only took it so they could put it on their jacket. I mean, I get that there's going to be some in the party, like Anand, who is going to be a fanatic, right? Who, like LeBlanc and Mark Miller, are just going to basically, kiss the hem of Justin Trudeau's cape as he walks by. Many of them, though, are going to be taking the jobs just so they can be out front. A lot of them crave the camera more than they crave doing a good job or being considered a person that is, done well by the Canadian population. Now, it's reflecting in many of the polls, this not only the uneasiness, which is being reflected horribly in the dollar. An Abacus poll has the Conservatives up by almost 30 points, which is just an amazing amount of change, an enormous amount of the population. I mean, that's the amount of people that are willing to admit that they're going to vote Conservative. You can appreciate how many people are actually going to vote Conservative. None but the die-hard are going to maintain with the party. Like I said before, they're probably going to have to be married to somebody who's running as a Liberal to vote for them. And even so, if you are married to somebody who's running as a Liberal, you should vote for people that are going to make better decisions than, obviously your spouse has made. The Sabica poll has the Liberals and the NDP going neck and neck. Now, we are all aware of my understanding of polls and why I'm not necessarily always ready to encourage them for people, because they're very fickle sometimes. People's moods change. And that is a lot of time what can have an impact on a poll. That's why, a news story will break and people will say, like, for example, Chrystia Freeland resigns, Justin Trudeau goes crazy, refuses to be honest with the fall economic statement, and the next thing you know, the Liberals have lost 6 points. Now, will that change if somebody hits the lottery or somebody, moves to Mexico? I don't know. What I'm saying to you is that we can't necessarily hold them to task. We can, though, say that it's a strong indicator because for sure the politicians of the world are following these polls, and to be up 29 points is astounding. I've never seen such a lead. I mean, never have I seen this kind of a gap in between the parties, especially between the Conservative and the Liberal Party, who for many years Canadians would simply vote back and forth depending on who was in charge of the particular party. Now, of course, Canadians are voting smarter. They're more informed thanks to the disaster of the Liberal Party. They're more educated on what really needs to happen and what is, of course, happening. Opening up a 30-point lead has probably got all of them coming together in the Ontario Caucus and saying we have to do something because we need to keep our seats. Another polling group, Nanos, did some projections on the seats. And on the left-hand side of the image, you can see the red versus the blue. That's our current layout. The gray areas are water, and the red is Liberals, and the blue is Conservatives, and that's how they spread out across the province. As you can tell, all of the rural areas of Ontario, or at least the bulk of the rural areas of Ontario, vote Conservative, as is primarily the way that it goes in the whole country at large. People who have to worry about how much money is coming in, who have to budget, who have to worry about cars being driven as opposed to public transit, those kinds of things, they tend to vote Conservative. It doesn't have anything to do with other than lifestyle changes. Now, the cities, of course, will change all of that for the far left because people want to think that life is not that difficult as it without understanding what it would be like to live without a bus or, to not have your grocery store just a couple of blocks away. That kind of thing doesn't occur. So because they don't have that complication in their life, they oftentimes will look at other factors which are not rooted in economics so much as rooted in their sociological slant. Of the left, of the red you see on the left there are 75 seats, and you'll look at that small little cluster in center middle there that little red pock marks. For those of you that might not be aware, when I zoom in on it, I will tell you that is exactly the city of Toronto, Mississauga, the GTA. Brampton is in there, other areas, but they're all sort of amalgamated into what's known as the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area. Now, that's not to say those little pockets way out there into the or down there either, but for the most part, this is the metropolitan region of Toronto, and it's almost exclusively liberal. These are going to be many of the 75 members of the Liberal Caucus that will have met and just tried to decide if they can force Justin Trudeau to resign. Because when he resigns, he's no longer party leader. And they then can pick a new party leader who, in theory, can, rewrite the view of the population on the Liberal Party. Now, if we were to go zoom in on the right-hand side of this, we can see that the Liberals are projected to lose most of the seats. The gray and the black are undecided. It's like they're getting a lot of people who are not willing to say if they're going to vote for one or the other, or even, I suppose, to some extent, the NDP. Though it's a safe bet that Jagmeet Singh's actions have taken seats away from him in great droves. As we look at the poll, we can understand that the Liberals are dropping, but the NDP is not gaining. It's not like they're moving to the other side. They're simply moving away from the ideology altogether. They're moving towards having their politicians worry about having a good economy, having the basics, not worrying about whether or not so-and-so can use such and such a bathroom or the type of books that we want to put into school libraries or those kinds of things. People are like, listen, I need to eat, I need cheaper rent, I need to buy a house. I need economic platforms going on over here, and your ideological stuff that I don't agree with really anyway, you can keep to yourself. And that's being reflected. So, of course, the Liberal Party is losing their minds. Now, before I wrap this up, I would like to point out to anybody who's listening to this that doesn't necessarily remember the way that it's been going, Chrystia Freeland is still the same person who froze people's bank accounts. Is still the same person that froze the bank accounts of two women who bought a shirt that supported the trucker, both of whom were single mothers on social assistance. And she froze their bank accounts because they bought a t-shirt each, a t-shirt. Chrystia Freeland is still the person that froze upwards to 30. Chrystia Freeland is still the deputy prime minister who agreed to put the RCMP and the army in the streets because some trucks were parked there. So people want to run around saying, oh, well, if they replace Justin Trudeau with Chrystia Freeland, maybe the Liberal Party will get a good kick. Maybe they will, because people are simply going to be blinded by their ideology and decide to cast their vote. But this is just another version of the same thing. This is still the woman who has stood in there and tried to convince you that the credit rating of our country is going to somehow make food less expensive. This is still the woman who stood up day after day after day after day and tried to mock anybody who didn't agree with her on economic policy, which we now know was a disaster. This is the same person who stood up and said, oh, we are going to, push back against anybody who doesn't agree with childcare or dental care or any of the policies that we are now $20 billion over in the deficit. This is something that people need to hear. Deficit isn't, we put in a little debt. Deficit means that we get a certain amount of money coming in, and we have that much money to go out. What we owe is $61 billion more than what we're earning. So this is still the same person who's going to have Mark Carney on speed dial, who's going to stand up and say how Mark Carney is the godfather to one of their children. Chrystia Freeland is not a better choice. There's no better choice in the Liberal Party. They are all the same. Anybody who disagrees with either Chrystia Freeland or Justin Trudeau ends up being cast aside, ends up being pushed out into the cold regions, ends up being, silenced on the microphone. So don't go telling yourself that by somehow you're going to, it's just, what's that expression? Stripes of a different color. It's just the same thing, only it's a different package, right? Instead of it being Justin Trudeau, it's Chrystia Freeland. But their policies are hand in hand. How many times did we hear Chrystia Freeland say that she completely supported the Prime Minister and that anybody who didn't support the Prime Minister was against her? We're all aware that they're the same person. We are all aware that they get their marching orders from some other places in this globe. But it's pretty funny to see them panic now that they know they're going to lose all their seats. I guess they didn't anticipate that people's moods would be different when it came down to going hungry, especially when you got someone like Chrystia Freeland who spends, thousands of dollars a year on dry cleaning that the population pays for. So now the Ontario Caucus has got MP Couteau, who's supposed to be talking to Trudeau about it. Trudeau's not going to go anywhere now. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to resign or do anything before January 27th when they recall Parliament. There's nothing that, except for the Governor General, there's nothing that we can do to stop him. And why would he? Why would he? He's not the kind of person that cares about what you think. He's not the kind of person that cares what you think about him. He's not the kind of person who cares about anything except for, people criticizing him. He's a narcissist and he doesn't care what you think. As long as he can tell himself that he is wonderful and he is great and he is warm and fuzzy, what you have to say means nothing to him. You're hungry, he doesn't care. You're homeless, he doesn't care. Doesn't matter what you say. You feel he should resign, he doesn't care. He doesn't care what you think. And by extension, none of the party members that have been supporting him for these last 9 years, who have been standing on the microphone and making fun of people for saying that Justin Trudeau got to go. These are all the same people who've been doing that. Now they're just trying to save their own skins. So they're saying something that goes against the narrative of the Liberal Party. But right up to a year and a half ago, they weren't saying, they were being very arrogant, very hostile and condescending. Now he's got some real hardliners in his cabinet, just people who want to basically, worship the ground he walks on. So what are they going to try to do in the next Parliament? I don't know, but we have to make sure that we can, get out in front of them, because these are going to be the yes men, extraordinaire. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this channel with all of your socials. I will talk to you next time.